I'm Mark Golub, and in the news throughout the world, the horrific terrorist attack in Nice that shattered a Bastille Day celebration as a large truck was used to mow down men, women, and children who'd gathered to watch the evening's fireworks. The number of dead and wounded keeps changing. We know that at least 84 people were murdered, 10 of whom were children. Some 200 people were injured, and 50 of them are at Pasteur Hospital in critical condition on life support. And the civilized world has come to a virtual dead stop. All eyes are turned toward Nice. All hearts go out to the families whose loved ones were murdered or maimed, or who lie now hovering between life and death. It's becoming almost commonplace now. Radical Islamic jihadist terrorist murders. Paris, Istanbul, Orlando, Nice, just to name a few. And it's interesting, the people of Israel, the men, women, and children of Israel, have been living with this same horror and death and maiming and pain and suffering and sorrow for decades. And somehow, the world community has never really understood the Israeli plight and the jihadist exercise of terrorist murder that has been a blight on what otherwise is a lovely, vibrant, beautiful life for the people of Israel. But perhaps that doesn't matter now. What matters now is that more and more people of goodwill are becoming sensitized to a war of civilizations we in the West, including the State of Israel, face today from the extreme radical stream of Islamic fundamentalism expressed by ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Boko Haram and by Hamas and Hezbollah. Today, there is a sense of oneness with the people of Nice and the people of France. And to talk about the feelings of the French Jewish community today, I'm honored to have on our JBS phones from Paris the Vice President of the CRIF, which is the Representative Council of Jewish Institutions of France, Yonathan Arfi, who's also the Chairman of CRIF as a Commission for International Affairs. Yonatan, thank you so much for joining us, and on behalf of all of us here at JBS, on behalf of all of the JBS viewing audience, we extend our profound condolences to you and the people of Nice and all of France for the loss you have experienced.
Thank you, Mark, for these moving words. Thank you.
Yonatan, you're in Paris. This terrorist murder attack took place hours away in Nice. Do you have any sense of how the Jewish community of Paris has experienced this horrific event?
You know, each time we experience a terrorist attack in France now, it makes an echo of the past terrorist attack we suffered. As you know, in 2012, the terrorists killed children in the Jewish school in Toulouse, in the southwest of France.
Yes.
In 2015, we had a kosher grocery attacked by a terrorist after the attack also of Charlie Hebdo magazine. And we have the feeling that being Jewish in France was being at the forefront of the terrorist attacks. And we have the feeling today, since the attacks of the Bataclan last November, and of course after the yesterday attack in Nice, that we are not alone anymore in this war, even if we remain at the forefront of these terrorist attackers.
I understand completely. By the way, you heard my open. Do the people of Paris, does the Jewish community of Paris feel that we are now at war with extreme Islamic jihadism?
Yes, but we have been thinking that over the last 5 years at least.
Yes.
And we really had the feeling to be, I would say, lonely in the French society when we were the only ones targeted by terrorists. When the terrorists started to target also the policemen and journalists, we started to find allies in the French society, to find people of goodwill, with awareness about the danger of jihadism. And now, as I said, after the attacks in November and yesterday, of course, we think that the whole French society starts to understand what is the danger of radicalization and what is the danger of terrorism, of course. But we also have to fight now to make everyone understand that this is a global issue. Terror is the same everywhere in the world. It's the same in Paris, in Nice, in Istanbul, in Orlando, and of course in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. And that's something which is important if we want to fight this this evil. We need to unify the efforts of all the democratic countries.
That's beautifully said, Yonatan. By the way, you know, in America, there has been, among many, a reluctance to identify this terrorist stream as extreme Islamic jihadism. From your perspective in France, when you see this debate going on the American scene, what do you feel?
Well, what I said to all our American friends who came to visit us last year after the Hypercacher attack, I said to them, you have to understand that what is happening in France is not specific to France.
Yes.
France has been the laboratory of the new anti-Semitism and also of the new terrorism in Western countries in a way. And don't think that you cannot be targeted in the U.S., that you are not totally protected from that. I know that the American society is maybe stronger than European societies to tackle these kind of issues. But there is no zero risk, as we know. And of course, the Orlando attack or the San Bernardino attack showed that you have to take that into account also in the U.S. And what is important is the ability to say where it comes from. We know that these people, those terrorists, were radicalized Islamists, which means that we have both to treat the issue on the security level, but we have also to tackle the cultural issue, which means we have to struggle against radicalization. And to do that, we have to accept the idea that a small part of the Islamic world chose to go towards radicalization, and we need to fight this trend, even if we have to make everything on the other side to fight for the integration of the rest of the Muslim population in Western societies.
So you feel that it is necessary to literally put the word Islamic somewhere in the title? It is not sufficient to simply say we are fighting global terrorism?
We do think that this is important because misnaming things is adding to the world's misery. That's a quote from French philosopher Albert Camus. And we truly think that if we do not name the things correctly, we'll not be able to fight terrorism the good way. And that's also a way, by naming things and saying that it's Islamist terrorism, it's also a way to help moderate Muslims. Because if we do not help them, the same way we helped people, dissidents from the Soviet Union, for instance, 40 years ago, if we don't do that, we will for sure have a growing movement among Muslim population towards radicalization. So if we want to tackle the issue of radicalization in the Islamic world, we need to say that when terror is inspired by radical Islam, we need to say it and help moderate Muslims.
Mm-hmm. Yonatan, from the French perspective, inside the French Jewish community, do you feel the United States of America has done enough in the fight against Islamic extreme terrorism?
Well, to be honest, we have the feeling that the U.S. have decided to withdraw from part of the world, some parts of the world. For instance, we have the feeling that the U.S. under the Obama administration decided to, I would say, to be less involved in regulating the world's policy, and that's something which has a strong impact in enabling, for instance, ISIS to settle almost a state in Syria and Libya, in Syria and Iraq on one side, and Libya on the other side. And we need to defend ourselves as democracies, and for that, of course, the U.S. have a strong role to play. Democracies cannot defend themselves without the help and involvement of the U.S. and even the leadership of the U.S. Mm-hmm. And that's something which I would say we lack today. We lack a U.S. involvement on this issue, and I remind our friends that when France was okay to bomb Syria 2 years ago, the U.S. decided not to go with France, so France did not go, and finally we did it together only 1.5 years later, so it means we lost time. You know, we should have treated the ISIS issue 2 years ago when they started to establish their own caliphate, what they call a caliphate in Syria and Libya and Iraq. So we lost time.
Yes. And what do you feel about the French government? How effective has the French government been in dealing with protecting its people from these terrorist attacks?
Well, I would say that on a Jewish point of view, the government, public authorities have been very supportive, and they, you know, just after the attack of the kosher grocery 1.5 years ago,
yes,
they decided to send military and policemen, military men and policemen to protect our synagogues and Jewish schools, and on a daily basis, and it was something which was very important to make Jews in France feel safer, and it has had an impact. We know that there is an issue with the number of Jews leaving France. They're going to live in Israel, making Aliyah. This number grew last year to 8,000 people, compared to 2,000 people only in 2012. It was multiplied by 4 in a 3-year time. And with the measures the government took, I think it has had an impact, and now this number will reduce this year to about 5,000. That's what the Jewish agency said. So it means that it has an impact. The government has been very, very supportive with us. Now there is an expectation from the whole French society, not only from the Jews. And it will be very, very difficult for the government to change the mentality regarding these security issues. As you know, in Israel, the whole society is concerned by security measures. It's taking part and playing its role, its part in fighting terror. But in France, as it is in other Western countries, it's not the case. We know we are never educated to fight terror as civil citizens. So we need to start this education.
Yes. Okay, Yonatan, in the American media, a great deal is made of the fact that there's a large immigrant Muslim population that has been slow to assimilate, and with whom there seems to be some serious friction. Do you feel this is an accurate description of French society or Paris society today?
No, France is not in danger due to immigration. That's wrong to say that. Of course, we know that most of the terrorists were from immigration families, from immigrant families. But we cannot reduce the whole population of immigrants to these terrorists. It would be dangerous, and it would also tend to, I would say, to provoke a movement towards radicalization of these immigrants. It would be counterproductive, first thing. Secondly, it is very difficult to assimilate in European societies for many, many reasons. In France, we have a very specific context, historical context, since most of these immigrants come from countries, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, which were former French colonies, as you know. And it means that it's not so easy for these immigrants to find their place in a French society sometimes. And it's, I would say, a joint responsibility between the way the society welcomes these people and the way these people find their own place in the French society. But I wouldn't say that the solution would be to reduce immigration or to reduce the number of Muslims or something like that.
I understand.
The question is not a number of people, but which people they are. So it's not a number of Muslims, but which Muslims they decide to be.
Okay, I feel that my question wasn't good enough. I want to sort of reframe it. It wasn't that I was asking about immigration. What I was saying was the way it's described to us is that, for example, a great deal of the anti-Semitism that the French Jewish community has had to deal with is fueled by the Islamic community. That it is a problem between, in some way, the Muslim community and the Jewish community. What I was really asking was, to what extent has Islamic-fueled anti-Semitism been the problem that the Jewish community, for example, of Paris, has had to deal with?
Well, it's right to say that the new anti-Semitism, as we call it in France, has been fueled by Islam-inspired anti-Semitism, because these immigrants came to France with their own prejudices against Jews. And as you know, the level of prejudices against Jews in the Islamic world is stronger than in the Western countries. And when these immigrants came to France, they came with their own prejudices on women, on gays, on Jews, and we have to tackle these issues as French issues now in many, many, many places. And those, for sure, we as Jews in France, we suffer now from a traditional extreme right anti-Semitism, which usually is not violent anymore, but we suffer also now from a new anti-Semitism coming from the Muslim part of the French society, and which is both, I would say, a social anti-Semitism and a religious anti-Semitism from this part of the French society. That's right. And we have to say that because that's the reality of the field.
Are you or any other Jew reluctant to wear a yarmulke, a kippah, on the streets of Paris because you fear there will be some kind of violent response?
Well, to be honest, everything depends on the place where you live. If you live in underprivileged areas where a lot of immigrants live, with a large part of the population of Muslim descent, for instance, you may feel, I would say, a kind of tension wearing a yarmulke in the streets, even if it's not it's not for sure. You may suffer from something, so you may decide to not wear your yarmulke with the same, I would say, simplicity as you would do before. Mm-hmm. But if you live in privileged areas of Paris, you can wear your yarmulke without any issue. It's not a problem. I personally know a lot of people wearing a yarmulke in the streets of Paris, in the subway, without, without feeling oppressed by anyone. So it's a very complex situation. It's a personal decision, depending really on your personal context, environment. And if you live in a hostile environment in some neighborhoods, it's for sure you will feel a kind of pressure.
You have said that there is a larger number of French Jews who are making Aliyah. In terms of your own opinion and sensitivity here, what percentage of those Jews of France who are leaving for Israel, making Aliyah, what percentage of them are leaving as a result of anti-Semitism in France, or what percentage of them are leaving because they simply want to be part of the state of Israel and express their Jewishness in the Jewish state?
Well, that's a good question, and nobody has real statistics about that. But for sure, we can compare to the past statistics. Over the last, I would say, 30 years, 40 years, we have an average. We had an average of 2,000 Jews leaving France every year to make Aliyah to Israel, and this number of 2,000 grew to 8,000 last year in 2015. After being 3,000 and 7,000 the years before. So, and as I said a little bit earlier, it is reducing now to 5,000 this year. So, for sure, there is an impact of the level of anti-Semitism. But my analysis is that the level of Aliyah is, of course, reflecting the level of Zionism of the Jewish community in France, which is a very Zionist Jewish community because we live closer to Israel. Many French Jews have close relatives living in Israel. So for sure, we usually have a Aliyah rate, I would say, stronger than many other Jewish communities. It also, this number of Jews living in France also reflects, I would say, an erosion of the feeling of belonging to the French society. So I would say the problem is not only the number of attacks, of anti-Semitic attacks, it's the way you feel lonely or on the contrary, I would say, supported by the rest of the population. If you have the feeling as a Jew that, of course, there is anti-Semitism, but the whole country is fighting against anti-Semitic attackers with you, and that you have your part in the future of this country, well, you may decide to stay in this country. If you have the feeling that people do not understand you and do not really understand anti-Semitism and that you are lonely against that, you may decide to make Aliyah. And my feeling is that after the attacks of the Bataclan last year in November and now after Nice, of course, for sure it will make more and more people in the French society understand that anti-Semitism is also leading to terrorism after, and that we all face the same challenges. And it will make Jews in France feel back in the family picture, I would say, of the country.
Very, very nice. You know, there are some who are saying that Jewish life in France is over. It's only a matter of time. In fact, there are people who are saying that Jewish life in Europe is over. It's only a matter of time. What do you say?
No, I don't think that. I do think that French Jews have a future in France and that European Jews have a future in Europe as long as France and Europe remain democratic countries, democratic societies. So saying that we have no future here means saying that we think that democracy is threatened in this part of the world. If democracy remains in Europe, for sure we're going to have a future here. It's only a matter of time to find a way to tackle the issue of radicalization and of anti-Semitism. I want also to remind you that at the beginning of the 90s, we were numerous to think that the South African Jewish community had no future in that country. And 25 years later, we have to acknowledge that even if the number of Jews in this country, in South Africa, reduced, the Jewish community still exists and is still strong. So we have also to understand that we cannot compare what is now happening in France and in other European countries to what we have in mind with, for instance, the 30s in Europe, or I don't know, for instance, the Jewish communities in the Muslim world. It's not something we can compare for one reason, one very important reason. We are attacked not by the majority of the population, but by the minority of the population. During the 30s, Jews in Europe were attacked by the public authorities of the European countries. And they were attacked by the majority of the population in a symbolical way. Now we are attacked by a minority of the population, and we have the support of the public authorities and of the majority of the population against that. It makes a huge difference, which leads me to say that we cannot compare the two situations, and that as long as France is a democracy and Europe is a democracy, we have a future there.
It is lovely to hear what you say. It would be so sad to me if in some way French Jewry came to an end or European Jewry came to an end. So I'm going to put a great deal of stock in what you just said, Yonatan. Yonatan, do you have a family of your own?
Yeah, I have a daughter who was born 6 months ago, so I'm a young dad.
Ah, Mazal Tov. That's wonderful. And do you worry for your wife's safety or your daughter's safety?
Not on a daily basis. I cannot say that I'm every day thinking on security concern. It's not right. It's not the way I live, and it's not the way many Jews live in France. Maybe if I was living in a very underprivileged area, I would say something different for sure. But most Jews live in places where you can be openly Jewish without any issue. The level of anti-Semitism is real. It's a serious trend, and we have to fight that. But we cannot say that we are in danger with an emergency. You know, we cannot compare that to the places where Jews were threatened by the public authorities, for instance.
I understand. Yonatan, you're a lovely person to speak to. By the way, your picture on our screen, you're also gorgeous. So it's been a real joy meeting you by phone.
You.
I am so sorry to meet you under these circumstances. Again, all of us, our hearts go out to the entire French community, Jewish community of France in particular. It is wonderful that you gave us some time. I hope that, this horror and this terrorist threat to Western civilization will soon come to an end, that you and your family and all the Jews of France will enjoy peace and security and a happy Jewish life. And I hope there are times in the future you and I get to speak. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Mark, for this blessing and for this invitation.
You be very well. Thank you. The thoughts of Yonatan Arfi. He's the vice president of something known as the CRIF, the Representative Council of Jewish Institutions of France. It's associated with the World Jewish Congress. He is chairman of its Commission for International Affairs, and he gives something of an upbeat answer while he is very clear about how serious the threat of extreme Islamic jihadist terrorism is. He has a real optimistic view of the life of French Jewry and European Jewry. It was a lovely thing to be able to speak to him. I hope you enjoyed meeting him. As always, my thanks to our director, Sloan Copeland, production coordinator, Serge Goldberg, editor, Dennis Golin, to JBS Associate Director, Dara Golub, and to the producer of In the News, Carol Lilienthal. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. Be well, my friends.